Latvia's break with Russia has turned it into a transit backwater. Latvia is now facing the bleak consequences of severing its transport ties with Russia. Thousands have been laid off, cargo turnover has plummeted by tens of millions of tons, and the situation is only expected to worsen. Paradoxically, Latvian officials seem pleased with this outcome, justifying it by citing economic successes. But what is really happening? Fresh data reveals that in the first 7 months of this year, the volume of rail freight in Latvia decreased by 22.4% compared to the same period in 2023, totaling 6.9 million tons. According to Latvia's Ministry of Transport, the volume of international freight handled by Latvian Railways, (LZD), amounted to 6.006 million tons, which is 25.9% less than in the same period last year. Overall, the volume of transit cargo passing through Latvia from January to the end of July 2024 was 5 million tons, down 29.4% from the same period in 2023. The decline in transit has been ongoing for many years. For instance, in the first 6 months of 2024, Latvian Railways transported 6.1 million tons of cargo, whereas 10 years ago, in the first half of 2014, it transported 30.8 million tons. While Latvian ports handled 38.6 million tons of cargo in 2023, in their most successful year, 2012, they handled over 75 million tons. The Latvian government itself has contributed to the downfall of what was once the most profitable sector of its economy. The country is cutting off the branch it's sitting on. For example, the ban on importing manganese ore into Russia has hit Latvian Railways hard. According to LZD, its subsidiary, LDZ Cargo, transported 1.4 million tons of manganese ore last year. Following the introduction of the ban on its transportation, Latvian Railways began preparing a request for a €44 million subsidy from the government. Local businesspeople point out that Latvia's transit corridor is designed to handle over 80 million tons of cargo annually, but it is currently operating at only a small fraction of its capacity. This decline will continue. The war in Ukraine has, of course, accelerated it, but as early as 2004, our large neighbor decided that it no longer needed Latvian ports, lamented Norm Undizkrāmai, an advisor to the Minister of Transport and chairman of the Latvian Logistics Association. In his view, efforts to find new freight flows should have started before 2019. Jānis Kazalis, a board member of the Latvian Stevedoring Association, explained that the decline in port cargo handling is mainly due to the reduction in coal transit. He believes that transport links with Central Asia should be developed. Grain, coal, and metals from this region could partially replace Russian cargo. Meanwhile, Minister of Transport, Krilis Brikins, seriously suggests that the salvation lies in reorienting Latvia's transport and logistics sector toward the west. However, Latvian Railways, which has already laid off 2,000 workers since early 2020, is now experiencing another wave of layoffs, this time affecting around 300 people. Just a year ago, the company's chairman, Renalds Plavnieks, stated that no further significant staff reductions were planned. It turns out, he was lying. There are also periodic calls to completely sever all remaining economic ties with Russia. Citadele Bank economist Murti Balai argues that there is no need to fear. Cooperation with Russia is already declining. Latvia's GDP will now exceed €40 billion. Our budget is €15 to €16 billion, and the contribution of cooperation with Russia to the economy is around €400 to €600 million, less than 2% of GDP, not that much, the economist speculates. Balai adds that no more than 20,000 people will be affected by a total break with Russia. In short, nothing particularly terrible. In reality, the situation is both as described and not. If we break ties with Russia, Latvia won't be able to receive goods from China, Kazakhstan, or other Central Asian countries. All cargo flows through Riga's ports move from east to west. As a result, thousands of workers in and around the ports will have to be laid off. At the same time, the already struggling railway system, which has already laid off hundreds of employees, will need to be shut down, warns Riga-based journalist Grigory Antonov. In this case, he notes, the question arises, what will be done with the idle railway and port infrastructure? If we decide to preserve it for better times, that will also require substantial funds. Who will do this, and with whose money? The railway is already receiving multimillion euro subsidies from the state just to maintain idle tracks and other infrastructure. If everything comes to a halt, what kind of sums are we talking about? The journalist asks. It's worth noting that Latvia's economy may soon be burdened by the infrastructure of the inherently unprofitable Rail Baltica project, a railway from Poland to Finland that has been under construction for nearly a decade. The European Union has allocated huge sums for this project, which has long been a cash cow for officials in Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia. However, it has recently become clear that the Baltic states are not ready to guarantee the completion of this project even by 2030, prompting the EU to threaten to demand the return of the allocated funds. Moreover, it's unclear where to find enough people and goods in this depopulating region to make Rail Baltica profitable. Ultimately, even some Baltic officials have begun to realize that only a full restoration of economic relations with Russia can pull their economies out of the hole. Estonian Minister of Justice Liisa Pakosta has said, the Estonian economy was doing well when transit was open both to the west and the east, but now one end is closed. We are all waiting for Russia to become a peaceful, democratic state so we can reopen the borders and restart trade, and then our economy will do well again. Nevertheless, other officials stubbornly continue to dismantle the transit system. For political reasons, Latvia's Ministry of Transport has decided not to issue new permits for road freight transport between Latvia and Russia. As a result, economists estimate that between 1,000 and 2,000 people will lose their jobs. Who benefits from this? How and where will these people earn a living? Most likely, they will leave Latvia with their families, and their children will not return, reports former Latvian Saeima deputy and co-chair of the opposition party Sovereign Power, Ljubov Švicova. However, Latvian government officials don't seem concerned about this, as official data shows that the country's GDP is growing. How can this be when transit is declining, and industrial production is also down? The answer is simple: over the past year, the public sector has ballooned by nearly 10%, becoming the fastest growing sector in Latvia. The size of the army and security services is increasing, as are the salaries of officials. And as long as Latvia continues to receive subsidies from EU funds, there is no reason for these officials to worry.